That's why when we go into a village and we get lost, they give us direction through you. But no, when you turn there at that corner there, that's the house of that chartered accountant. That's how you turn. They want to tell us there is a CA in that village. That's how proud the village is.
Hello and welcome to my channel. My name is Famba, a chartered accountant working in Zimbabwe. A moment to appreciate that although it has taken me a whole 9 years, which is more than what is normal for a person, the whole 9 years including my degree, to be able to use this designation, I'm going to get it and do it at 23. Like a moment of silence, because I've waited so long for me to be able to use this mod, a chartered accountant. Anyway, if you're new here, all I do is I sit down and I talk to you about careers, money, and travel. Sometimes all this based on my life experiences and how I perceive them. So if you're new here, welcome. Please do feel free to subscribe if this is anything that you might be interested in or something that you think you would enjoy or benefit from, because this whole channel is about mentoring and just keeping each other updated on our journeys. If you're a returning subscriber, as always, I am grateful for you. I cannot believe that 1,850 people knowingly, willingly subscribed to this channel and want to be updated on the going ons in my life and how I think and how I have perceived my experiences. I'm honestly so humbled. If you're not yet subscribed, please do consider subscribing. Nothing would make me happier. So in today's video, we're going to talk about my chartered accountancy journey. I'm sure if you just Google Famba, my story and stories will come up, but I just wanted to do a video so that you just hear it from me. So without wasting so much time, let's get into it. I wanted to make this video a draw my life, but I then realized that a draw my life requires so much time and effort and editing, and I'm just not in the space where I can provide that. So I'll just do this as you seeing my face and my gorgeous new hair. My name is Maud. I was born in 1997 in November. Right then in 2003, which is the time I was supposed to turn 6, I started grade 1. I started grade 1 in Gokwe. Then the second term I moved to Handus Road. Handus Road is a place between Kwekwe and Gweru, and it's right there in the middle. And when I moved to Handus Road, I was enrolled into a school called Conmara. Now this is where some of the skipping started. I went to Conmara prison school for that term, and that's the first day how much I walked to that school. I said I don't want to walk for 7 years. I mean, I didn't want to do it. I asked my family, I said I want to go there and just say I'm in grade 2. So I got to the school and I said, and the teacher asked me and they said, what grade are you? Then I told the teacher that I was in grade 2. Now mind you, I was small. There was none of these. Everything wasn't there. I was so small. I was tiny. The teacher said, okay, fine, give me math. And I was always ahead in terms of reading for my classes. So I knew whatever she was asking me. So I passed the questions that she had asked me. I got those correct. So then after that, at break time, one of my relatives was learning at the school as well, and he was in grade 6. He was asked, when I told him that I was going to say I was in grade 2, so you didn't know, you genuinely didn't know, and said, "Mwana I got grade 1." So back I went to grade 1. I didn't care really. Then I went back to grade 1. Then the following year, the villagers decided, you know what, this school is too far, because as much as I was walking 8 k's to school, in grade 1, guys, this is like 6-year-old. There were people who stayed way further from the school than I did. They would walk 8 plus other kilometers. So it was way it was too far away for them. So we decided on a central place. That is how Hurudza Primary School was conceived. Hurudza Primary School was more of a makeshift school. I remember we even had to call Moko. If you don't know who Moko is my little brother. Everyone had to come to school, even 4-year-olds, to start school so that we could just get to the minimum number of people that was required to open a school. I remember. And Muko was 4. That's how he managed to get ahead of everyone else. So, long story short, we started a new school. We didn't have classrooms. We had composite classrooms. So grade 1, 2 learned in one class, 3, 4, 5 in one class, 6 and 7 in one class. And now, because we were doing that, we also didn't have furniture and stuff, but it was closer, and we had 3 teachers. So those were the teachers that took in all these classes. The grade 6, 7 class teacher became the headmaster. Right, so I did my grade 2. I was in the same class as Muku. I hated being in class with Muku because Muku is so competitive. At that point, we were not really each other's best friends. We were just like, who are you? So Muku would always be raising his hand, wanting to answer questions from my class, so that when we got home, he would be able to tell the people at home that he was answering questions for grade 2, and in Napanachandinoziva, like, I don't know anything. So I hated being in that class. I was so happy the following year when I went to grade 3, because it meant I was leaving his class. So he was now grade 2, I was now in grade 3. Then I was given a paper for grade 4 by mistake, but I don't think it was a mistake. I think one of the class teachers really liked me and really knew that I was bright. So he gave me a paper for grade 4, didn't tell me it was a grade 4 paper, wrote the exam, had 100%. It was a math exam. So after passing that exam, I wrote exams with grade 5, and then after writing those exams in grade 5s, I was number 1 in grade 5. So the following year, instead of going to grade 4, I went to grade 6, and in that same year I became the head girl. There was no grade 7 at the school at the time, so I became the head girl of the school. Then after that, I went to my grade 7. It was just 4 of us in the class. The school was really small, hey, because everyone who had money would take their children, or anyone who had a decent life would take their children to a more decent school that could give them so much more than what Hurudza could. But I'm grateful for it. And then I had 4 units, became the best student, and I was lied to. My family said to me, you're going to go to Regina Mount. Regina Mount is very close to Handus Road, because it's like in Gweru, right before you get into the city of Gweru. So I was happy for some time. There was no original moment that was happening. But it's so funny because people bought me trunks, and I believed. And they told me I had a scholarship from an insurance company. But well, that was never to happen. So I stayed at home. And then they said, you know what, we're going to make sure that you go to school. You're going to go to Kwekwe High. Kwekwe High, they didn't. Like, nobody really had money to afford me going to Kwekwe High. So what happened is I then ended up going to a school, a college, which was called Pumelela Budiro College, which was right in town in Kwekwe. So when I went there, I knew that based on where I was coming from, it was not going to be feasible for me to commute to Kwekwe for 4 years. I needed to do whatever I needed to do in 2 years. That was the only way I could manage to be educated, because my family lived off vending, so they would buy fish in Binga and then would sell them along the Blawayo road to motorists. So I knew that there was no way that was going to be sustainable for 4 years, and I was right. So when the first term started, there was a relative, a very distant relative actually, who lived in Kwekwe, who stayed with me. I think I stayed there for like 2 weeks. Then they said, you know what, back to Andres Road. I went back to Andres Road, and then they organized with a teacher at Pumelela for me to stay with. I stayed with them. I would bring in my groceries every Monday and then go back home every Friday. That also worked for like 2 weeks, and then it didn't work. Then I was grounded. I was back to 0. I was back in Andres Road. Now, I'd never seen a model of a happy marriage in my life. So that's 1. 2, I was 10. People get married, and sometimes I think some girls might start thinking about boyfriends and whatever because of their environment, and also stuff, because they've also grown like in their bodies and stuff. They start feeling things. I was 10. I didn't have boobs, so there was no way I was going to think about marriage. And when I thought about marriage, I thought about my mother's marriage, and I did not want to be my mother. So I kept on looking at how can I improve my life. Now, my dad had told me before that the only way I was going to improve my life and the family's life was if I went to school. So now, when I was sitting home, got books there were some books that were lying around at home, and then there were also some books that I could get from people in the community, and then I used those to study. So I studied for like a month on my own. Then my family said, you know what, we can move to Gweru for you to be able to go to school. If you hear the word moved, you would think it's fun and it's all roses. But I remember at some point I had to sleep at the railway station. We would buy a ticket because back then, this was now 2008. Things were so bad. So what we would do is and inflation. So like train tickets were very cheap. So we would wake up in the morning, buy maize from farmers. When the sun is up and everyone is looking for food and stuff, then we'd sell to people and then we'd get money. From that money, we'd buy our meal at lunch. Then from lunch, we would buy a ticket, look like we're going somewhere, going to the NRZ waiting room in Gweru, sleep there, use the bathrooms there, bath or whatever you need to do, until we went to stay at this place called Mr. Sosh. Anyway, this is not a life story video. This is how I became a chartered accountant. So in the midst of this, sleeping at the railway station and everything, my family then said, you know what, the whole reason why we're moving to Gweru is because we want you to go to school. So we're going to enroll you into a school. My family tried. They really tried. So I went to this class, this college called Solos College. They used to wear those nice brown skirts. Then I went there, and then they said, what form are you? I said, I was in form 4. I said, it's a lie. Then they gave me algebra. My math, I'm good with numbers, but my math back then was still in ZJC level. So I flunked that exam. But then they wanted money. 2008 was hard for everyone. So they said, no, you know what, you can come through. I registered and then I started reading. This was sustained for a month, guys. When we found a place, then we moved to that place. Then I was commuting into town, and then I knew this was going to be the end of the life. So I then the family we then had that there was money being made in Chegutet Empress from selling oranges. So the family moved. We made it a tourism trip, and we went into the train. We took the train from Gweru to Chegutu, and then I remember we came from the station. We went to this place called Zola food. Then we ate good food, and we thought, you know what, Chegutu was going to present nice life, all these other problems are going to disappear. Little did we know. Then I remember walking down the street and thinking, oh my goodness, we're going to find a nice house to stay in. And then we just kept going, and then look, we were at this place like Mr. Sosho's house. There was this guy whose name was Mr. Sosho's, whose house we were staying at in Gweru. The house had no windows. They would leave just a small portion on top of the windows for air to come in, and then fill it up with brick and mud. I wouldn't even call it cement because there was no cement. It was just mud for it, because it was a temporary structure, and it needed to be they needed to be able to just break it down when they wanted to then put in the windows. So this was the same place that we went, but at least the one in Cheguti had doors. And guys, 2008, remember, was hard. So when we get there, the hope of going to school out the window. So we just stayed there. And then I thought, you know what, there are a lot of people that are not going to school. I have textbooks here that I can use. So that is what I was then using. Then I started 2008, tried my Form 4 for the first time. And then I remember people didn't really believe. I remember even some family members saying, you know what, why is she rushing and whatnot. But I knew if I didn't get that chance, I wasn't going to get it again. I was never going to get 4 years to do my O-level. It was just how it was. Given my family, people get married at 16. Before 16, nobody takes other things seriously. So especially girls. So I needed to take that chance. So I said, I want to register for Form 4. At first, as I said, it's the traction and stuff. But by the time we registered for Form 4, the exam, the amount was equivalent to a loaf of bread or something. So in 2008, I wrote my exam. After writing my exam, I didn't pass that exam, but it was good for me. Why? Because straight out of grade 7 that year, you're not going to any formal school. You're just winging it at home, and then you go to write your O level, and then you get 2 B's, one in I don't even remember my subjects, 2 B's and 3 D's. I had a D in math, a D in English, and a D in geography. That really gave me a boost. I don't want to lie, that gave me a boost that I could actually do this thing. But then here's the funny story. I never told anyone about this story except the people that know it. So after Form 4, family asked, how do you feel? Do you think you passed? I said yes, I did. Then they said, remember this was 2009 now, and results I think came around June or so. So they said, since results won't come on time, people who were meant to go to Form 5 could use their mid-year results. If they passed their mid-year results, they could use that report card to do Form 5, and then it would just be legitimized by what? By the exam when the results came, by the results when they came. I didn't go into informal school because I didn't have a report card. Okay, so I went to Gemton, this college in Chegutu. Most people, if you're from Chegutu, you would know this college, and it was owned by a family friend. So he just said, you know what, she wrote your Form 4, she thinks she passed. And he said, okay, fine, let her come. If she doesn't pass, she'll go back. And now this results came, and I had 2 B's and 3 D's. So I had to go back. That was one of the most embarrassing moments of my life. Imagine you walk into a school and you're so young and so tiny, and everybody is looking at you, and then all of a sudden you have to go back. Like, failing is hard on its own, but failing while people's eyes are on you, and all these other family members were like, she'll never pass, she'll never pass, she'll never pass. That was hard. But to me, once I got through the embarrassment, what the experience taught me was, if I could do a B and a D, I could make those D's B's or C's or anything that is a pass. So what I did that same year, I asked for money for 3 subjects now instead of 5, and then remember, things were now stabilizing. So then I wrote my 3 subjects. Come 2010, I had passed my Form 4, but where to go for A level now? My family, I remember my uncle put in an ad and said, we're looking for a scholarship for a 12-year-old who's doing A level. I don't think anybody believed it, because it would sounded like a scam, so no one responded. Then I was enrolled into the school. I went to St. Francis High School, which is in Chegutu, and I asked them to enroll me as a Form 5. Then they asked me to write a test. Remember my previous test with entrance exams? So I said no, I will not come back. Then I went to Fupajana High School. They made me do a quadratic equation or something, and then they believed. And then also I had written my exams as an external candidate at Fupajana High School the previous year, so they knew me. So they said it's fine, you can take a chance. And then now it came a story of, what do you study? This is where the story of becoming a chartered accountant comes in. They said, what do you study? And then I said to them, I want to do business studies. Why? Because remember I said we had a business where we used to sell fish along the Blair Road. That was one. So I really had an inkling for business, because all these businesses that my family, we would sit down as a family, you know what, we're going to make so much profit, and you'd all that, but then all of a sudden you're just broke, you don't even have food. Cleaning it to make sure that you have and then you end up eating sadare red and sadare green, but you have all these profitable businesses on paper. So I knew I wanted to study business. 2, one of my uncles had said to me, if you're learning to get money, don't study anything else that is not money. So you'd rather be studying money. So that was that. And I thought I was so good in commerce. So then I went there and I said I want to do business studies. I want to do divinity and geography. I had a D in geography. I don't even know why I wanted to do geography. And then they said to me, if you have a D in geography, you can't do geography. So that was out. And then they said, business studies is a commercial subject. Divinity is an art subject. You can't do business studies and divinity. You have to choose. So all my subjects were disqualified except for business studies. So I knew I could do business studies. Then I knew I was very good in numbers. So I said, bring it on with math. That was a mistake given my background. But I was good at numbers. So I said math. Then the third subject, they said economics. I didn't really want to do economics, so I ended up choosing accounting because in my mind it was a meeting of business studies and math, because I thought accounts just numbers. Didn't know of what is called a chartered accountant. Then my plan was to go to university, and then do my master's and then do my PhD and then be called a doctor. I remember even my family calls me doc up to now. How things change. So around second term, there was a situation where people were being sent back home if you hadn't paid your fees. So my fees wasn't paid because remember, no one responded to the ad. I could just get my family could just buy me uniforms, but not really fees. So I was in and out of class. Then this guy who was disabled, who was a biology teacher, and so because he was a biology teacher, he was always in the science laboratory, in the lab. So I would go there for math. I was the only girl doing math. I was the only girl doing commercial subjects. This is before A-level was this popular in government schools. In 2011, it wasn't really that popular. 2010. So I was the only girl doing math, the only girl doing commercials, and the little kid in class. So my absence was bound to be felt. So this guy noticed that I was in and out of school. Then he asked me, he thought I was late because I was doing clothes for my dolls. People knew that sometimes I would be late for this stupid stuff that I would be doing because I was just a child. So he thought it was one of those. I remember this because then I was exempted from the exemption that A-levels were not beaten up if they were late to school. If I was late, I would be beaten. So, because I was being a child, so I lost my A-level privileges. Anyway, so he noticed it and then he asked me, why are you always in and out? And then I said, no, it's not because of my dolls. People really overrate my dolls experience. I'm in and out because my fees are not paid. Then he said to me, but with your story, someone should be able to pay your fees. I said, we tried the newspaper ad in the financial gazette, it didn't really work out. He said, no, don't worry. He couldn't find a job. So after he got a job, he couldn't find a job. So he had to get his story written in a newspaper. And after it was written, the uptake was so good. So that is when he called this guy. Coincidentally, this guy's name was Brian Shafamba. Brian Shafamba comes, writes my story. Then I got a scholarship for the whole year. My fees was paid for the whole year. Got a new set of uniforms, track suits, sportswear, shoes. Got everything new in Paris, I think. And even Mama Red Rose, yes, she even came through with books. Randall, Bruce Joel, and whatnot. I had those. I now had my own copies, but still, I failed in my A-level Form 5, not Form 6. Form 6 I passed, but in my Form 5, I failed at like a 37% in math, and then I was doing so well in business studies. But accounts, I think I had like 40s. It wasn't bad, but it wasn't good. So the reason why I was flanking maths was because whenever I got to ask my maths teacher any questions, you would say, we told you that you can't handle A-level, please go back to Form 1, because that is where my age mates were. Please go back to Form 1, don't be disturbing us here in Form 5. So I'll just be sitting in the lab and you'd just be doing whatever. Anyway, something happened at home in my Form 6, couldn't be at home. So as God would have it, in the previous year, I had been invited to speak at a conference in Chinoy just on what girls can do, what boys can do, girls can do better. And I had spoken again about it at a prize giving where the provincial education director was there and the district education director was there. So the district education director then called the headmaster beginning of Form 6. Said, could you please ask that little girl if she's happy with learning over there, or does she need anything that we can help her with? Then when the headmaster asked me this, we were at home, just me and Moku. We didn't even have food at home. When the headmaster asked me this, I told him, no, I'm not fine. I'm not at my best. I need to be in a boarding school because there's no food at home. There's no one at home. So he got me a scholarship to go to Sandringham. Then I also told him, you know what, I can't go to Sandringham and just leave Muko alone. Muko was like 10 at the time. So then they said, you know what, we'll also get Muko into Moleli. So Muko got into Moleli, I got into Sandringham High School. After going into Sandringham High School, I went there in a very weird uniform because I had my uniform that had been bought for me for my form 5, which was black and green, and Sandringham is a navy skirt and a light blue shirt. The reverend took me to central stores, got me a shirt, shoes, stockings, blazer, but then I couldn't find a skirt because these other girls, you know, the expectation is at A level somebody looks a certain way, and I was just so little, so I had to get skirts from everyone else in the stream, and I would tuck them in. But it was cute because I was being taken care of. And this other guy, Blessed, got me through Interact. They got me blankets. It was so good. So Sandringham was my first test at the nice life. Then after Sandringham passed my A level, I had an A, B, and a C. And I'm so grateful I got to go to Sandringham because I don't think I would have passed if I'd stayed at Fubajina High School. Nothing bad against it, but I just feel like that math teacher wouldn't believe in me, and just not being, there's just something that comes with a better school. I don't want to deny it, and I don't want to trivialize it. That's why I respect people who pass from those kind of schools, from the government schools in the location, because, like, guys, it takes so much more to get a simple A from a government school. So after that, I went back home, back to my life. Then one day someone calls me, it's like, so I went to apply to UZ. That's another story. I'll do a story time about when I applied to the UZ, and they said they couldn't give me a place until I had to be featured in a newspaper. But that's a story for another day. Today we're just going to just shorten this video. That's a story for another day of how when I applied to the UZ. So I then went back home. After my story was then put in the newspaper, the news had offered me a place. And you know what? Prior they'd said that I could never get a place at UZ because I was too young and it just didn't work like that. The system was rejecting my application. It just went 360, like up there. There is a God. It just went 360 from you can't get admitted into this place to the Vice Chancellor, Professor Nyagora, saying, here are all the programs that we have here at UZ. You are so young, you're only 14. Please choose the program of your choice. What program would you like to do? Then I told him I wanted to do accounting. Why? Because I thought it was an infusion of business and numbers. And I thought, remember I only started studying at A level. So I thought I was going to do great there. People try to tell me to go do sciences. And I remember someone even also recommending Biscuit, which is like business studies and computer science technology. And I just didn't want to do that. I wanted to do accounting. So after 3 years, I went for my attachment at Zimra, internal audit. Commissioner General at Zimra asked me, what do you want to do after? And I really loved it. And then they asked me, what do you want to do after? I said I wanted to do auditing. So after my attachment, I was set. I was going to graduate. Then I was going to do my master's. Then as I was doing my master's, I would be working at Zimra as an internal auditor, because I remember at the time, I think internal auditors would get like 1.7 or like something like that, and I thought I would have so much money to do the things. So to cut a long story short, December, the year I finished attachment, December, one of my favorite partners at Deloitte called me and said, hi, I'm this, would you be interested in doing articles with us? I said, no, I don't want to do articles. Even prior to that, when I was still in my second year, one person from one of the big 4 firms that is not Deloitte called me and said, do you want to do articles so that you move to part-time and start doing articles? I said no. I don't know how I still feel about that decision now. Am I proud of it? Yes, at least I got to have an experience of college. Am I not proud of it? Yes, I should have just taken that offer, because I really wasn't doing college the way anyone does college anyway, because I was just in high school prior college, my first degree. That was high school. Anyway, so fast forward to my 3rd year. Then somewhere around my 4th year, one of my friends, Eddie, says to me, Maud, please just go and see the partner. He had gone for attachment at Deloitte. Remember, I was saying I would go to Zimra, and this guy said, please go and see the partner. Just hear him out. So when I was still on attachment, even Anesu Daka from CIA had called me and said to me, do you want to be a CIA? Blah 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 blah. I thought, okay, sounds interesting, but I wasn't really convinced that I wanted to be a CA. He sold it to me. He sold me his story. I'll tell you the sweet thing that Tumai then said. But these days I was very close with Mogo. Not that I'm not close with him anymore, but I was way close because it was more of a dependency situation. He was my child, and now he's his own man. But before then, he was my child. So then all my decisions were centered around me being the mother. So when Tumai said to me, do you know that as a CA, you get enough money to take Mugu to Paris? That changed my mind. I don't want to lie. Then I thought, okay, fine, let's hear what the CA thing is about. Then I went back to Anesu because I had taken his number before when he had called me and said, let's have a conversation before he had that conversation. So then I talked to him. But come through June 2016, finished my degree. And then I'm like, I want to go to Deloitte. Some hiccup happened and I was meant to start at Deloitte in November. Now, remember that I was meant to start at Zimra as an internal auditor. And in May, Mr. Passy then was relieved of his duties as CG, and a new CG came, and that CG had then said to me, the deals that you made with Passy are not the deals with me. Nothing was ever written down, so you can't come to be an internal auditor. So this meant I was basically jobless after June. I think we finished our exams like 6 June or 2 June or something like that, like very early in June. So I was now like jobless. And I remember the vice chancellor was saying to me, do you want to, if you're going to wait for Deloitte, and then what happens if the person that you've been talking to at Deloitte, since you don't have a contract, you have a verbal contract, you don't have a written contract, what happens if they are fired? That gave me a wake-up call. So then also because of other circumstances and situations, I had to do my master's. Then I went to Deloitte, talked to them nicely, and they were also very understanding. So they then sponsored me to do my CTA, which was my postgrad certificate in accounting, and then my master's was sponsored by UZ. So it was UZ sponsoring my master's and Deloitte sponsoring my CTA. Now, what to do? You're first with both of these programs, both so good, and everyone who is offering this to you is thinking this is the best course for you. What do you do? Let me know in the comment section. So I went back to Anesu, told him, Anesu, this is the situation. He's the owner of CAM. Anesu, this is the situation that's here. What do I do? Then he says to me, drop the masters, you don't need it. And then I said, because of other factors, I cannot drop it. Went to my user said, drop the postcard thing, you don't need it. As long as you have a master's, you're good to go. So what Aniston said, fine, if you can't drop either of them, do them both. And then I was doing this full time. So I did my CTA full time and my master's full time. CTA is so different from a master's, but I had to do them. One for myself and the other for myself, like my other life, and then the other for me. So after I did my CTA, then I went to Deloitte the following year. I was meant to start in Deloitte in December 2016, but I only started in February because of the first board exam, which was ITC. Then I started at Deloitte in 2018. Did my articles from February 2018 to January 2021, and then it took me a whole 5 months. February, March, April, May, June to then be registered as a CA because of I think just admin stuff. But yeah, that's my journey. What does the future hold? The future now is very exciting, guys, with me becoming a chartered accountant. So becoming a chartered accountant then puts away the need for me to become a doctor. I didn't need to be a doctor, and I don't want to be an academic. So that is on the side. Please, if you hoped that I would become a doctor at some point, I'm sorry to disappoint, but it doesn't serve me. So maybe later when I'm like go maybe since I already have a master's, maybe I can then do my PhD. But for now, all I'm really about is about learning, not in class. I'll only go to learn in class if I get into Harvard and Stanford and Wharton and Columbia, New York, STEM. If I don't get into those schools, I'm not going back to the classroom. I'm learning everything through doing and experiencing. But yeah, that is my story of how I became a chartered accountant. So then 4 months after I finished my training, I then left my home, which was Deloitte, and I joined training and advisory services, and I've been loving it ever since. Like, it just feels like home as well. Nice people, a great team, and good job responsibilities, and it feels so good to also just be there. So yeah, guys, let me know what you think of this story. I had to cut up bits and pieces because it was gonna be so long, and some of the things, my life is like if you've been watching Real Housemaids of Zimbabwe, my life is like Ned's life, misfortunes after misfortunes. But I'm so good. I'm so grateful that this story had a great ending, despite all the hurdles that were thrown in that path. It does have a happy ending, and I hope this happy ending now is a beginning of a very beautiful and quite different story. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to subscribe to see what is more in line with me. Next up video, I don't know what I'm going to talk about. Let me know if you have anything that you want me to talk about next after this. Thank you so much, guys. Bye.